My name is Resurgin, and today we're going to be building this beautiful cabin behind me using early game materials. As a disclaimer, I am using creative mode in Valheim, but what we're going to be building today you should be able to follow along with pretty easily in survival. So we've spawned into a new world, and the first thing that I'm going to do is search out a location that is close by the sacrificial stones but not on them. Short jaunt through the woods, and I find this wonderful peninsula with beautiful views on either side that is somewhat level and definitely accessible by boat, which will help. I'm going to start by clearing these trees. Now that I've got this peninsula cleared, I need to start setting up an area where I can repair my tools and build from. And voila, a usable workbench. Now that I have a workbench, I crafted myself a hoe and I am ready to start leveling terrain. There are several options. The paved road option comes in later in the game, and you have the first three options available to you early on. We're going to use level ground, and we're going to pick a point and just start leveling. It is worth noting that when you're leveling ground, wherever you're standing when you are leveling is the elevation that you're going to level at. So keep that in mind for any stubborn high or low spots. For steeper areas that you would rather have gradually ascend, stand halfway and then level the ground. That'll help with softening the slope. If you happen to have any trees or shrubbery around, as you raise and lower the ground, you'll notice that they raise with the ground or lower with the ground depending on your elevation. Because the build is going to be a little bit big, I'm just going to keep clearing around to give myself that room to work with. Now that I'm not being rudely interrupted, we have a nice cleared area that we can start laying down a foundation at. You'll notice that as you prepare to lay down your foundation, there's a white dotted line. You can't place anything if you step outside of that because it's beyond the radius of your workbench, so I'm going to place another one right here. Now that I've got more area to work with, I'm going to start figuring out where I'm going to start laying down my first floorboards. You'll notice that I am aiming towards the highest elevation.
Oh, really?
Because the ground won't clip through it. So we're going to speed through this and just lay down a little 3x5. Now that we got this laid down, you'll notice that there are some green spots versus blue spots. Blue is for solid, green is okay, you can still build with it, but I don't like floaty, so I'm going to try and fix this. Sometimes you gotta break a few things in order to get to the elevation that you need. Now that we've got our floorboards down, the elevation is fixed, we're going to start throwing up some supports, and I like using the 2-meter beams. And we're just going to line them all over this thing and just frame it in just like this. So now that we got all these down, we're checking to make sure that all of them are structurally sound with blue coloring. If there's any green, fix your elevations. And we're going to start by throwing in some doors. Now you can use the smaller doors or the gates. The gates will give you a little bit more head space, but they do cost more. So if you're a little short on resources, go for the shorter door. Not that you'll be short of any resources in terms of wood with this build. Now what you'll notice is that if you try to frame this door in, when you open it, you're going to hit your head against that beam. You're not going to be able to get in or out, so we're not going to do that. We're going to leave that open. Now that we got both doors installed, we're going to start walling this puppy in. Now you can have the boards facing out or in. I like to have them facing out. They give a little bit more depth to the build. Now make sure that when you're placing your walls they are flush or not sticking out like that. And now for a fireplace, because we need a fire to keep warm. We're going to place one down just to see where the smoke goes. Now we're going to wall it in to help protect it from the elements, and once again I'm going to have those boards facing out just for continuity. So we got ourselves some floaters here, and I'm going to try and fix... darn it. Maybe raise that. Yeah. Fixed. Now that we got our fireplace, we're going to start throwing up a roof, and I'm using the steeper pitched roof. Sometimes you got to add a temporary support in order to place that last roof segment if you don't have a wall there. In this case I used a beam. We're going to leave it there because it adds some aesthetic. Now we're going to put up the other side. Now that we got the roofs on, we're going to add more beams around just for an aesthetic. It adds a nice trim. Now we're going to throw up that center roof, which is again the steeper pitch, and that's going to give us some shelter. We are done with the roof, and we're going to frame in the sides just like this. Again, you want to make sure that it is flush, not sticking out. It could take a little bit of doing with the snapping. We've done this on both sides, and what I'm going to do is add a cross brace, which is going to give a kind of arch over that door. A little bit better than smacking your head into a beam, isn't it? And we're going to throw up crosses on either side of the building. Looks nice, yes? Okay, we got the roof up. Now we need to fix this chimney, otherwise it's gonna get rained on and you're not gonna have a fire. So we're gonna throw up beams while dying from smoke inhalation. Throw up some supports while dying from smoke inhalation. And some half beams just to raise that up a little bit. Let's add some support so we can place that roof a little better, and voila! Look at that. Well protected from the rain, and you could just leave it like this, but I'm not a fan of leaving it this bare bones. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna gussy it up a little bit. We're gonna have to do something about those beams. First things first, I want to put a shallow cross right across like that. Makes it look a little nicer. Now I'm going to get rid of that beam because it is blocking the smoke and we don't want that, so I'm going to get rid of it on both sides. And voila, you have yourself a working chimney. We're going to throw up some half beams just to add a little bit more aesthetic. Keep in mind that these are not protected by any roofs, so you may have to repair them every once in a while if you don't like the grayed weather look. We're going to throw up some beams here. We're going to throw up a beam here. And on the other side. This build is looking amazing. So now that we got the chimney up, we're going to start throwing up some supports. Do this on both sides. Now we need to get up on top of the roof to add some crosses. Not necessary, but I like putting them up there. Now when you're up here, it's a bit of a balancing act, and the snapping can be a little bit difficult. But it's satisfying when it's all done. This is looking great. You could stop here, but why are we going to stop here? We're going to add a window. So to add our window, we're going to have to break out a couple of our wall panels here. We're going to break out these two. You could place it anywhere in the building that you want, but I'm just going to place it right here. We're going to keep the center supports, and we're going to throw in a couple of 45-degree eye corners. And it's already looking really nice. Now you'll notice that there's a gap here. To cover that up, we're just going to add some more beams. And we're going to add it all around just for continuity. Now that we got that done, what we're going to do is start framing this in. We're going to add a support beam at the top coming out, which is going to make it look a little nicer. And then we'll start throwing up some framing along the outside. But first, I want to throw up some half walls, and I'm going to have the smooth side facing out. I'm going to frame these in with beams, and man oh man, is it looking nice. Now you'll notice that there is a little bit of a texture difference between the boards out versus the boards facing in. I kind of like it this way. It makes it a little bit more distinguished. So now we could put a beam here, but that would make the window a bit small, so I'm just going to frame in the tops like this, and I'm going to finish it off with a cross. Hot dang, that looks nice. I'm also going to follow up with a center beam here, just so it looks like it's supported and gives you a nice set of windows here. Now you could stop there, but what I'm going to do is add a little bit more complexity by putting in a vertical beam right in the center, just like this. I'm going to try not to have the beam showing at the front, maybe a little recessed just like that. And holy cow, look at that. Does that not look nice? And you could add a center support just for a little bit more detail, and voila, a finished window. Gives you a nice view of the front of the house. Now, say this isn't your only window that you wanted to put in. Maybe you want to put in another one. So we're going to punch out this panel back here. Again, you could place it wherever you want. It just works best for me in this area. So we're going to throw in a half wall just like that and another beam, trim that in, and instead of having a steep roof here, what we're going to have is the shallower roof. We're going to place it in just like this and give it a little bit of support with full beams. I thought about using half beams, but I like it when it sticks out just a little bit. Kind of adds to that rustic feel. Now we're going to frame it in. We got the top and bottom, and I'm going to put a center in just like we did the other side and try to get it as centered as possible. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, so you just have to spend some time with it. I'm a little OCD, so I'm going to break it and try to recenter it, just like that. Now, your center support can snap, and that gives you a nice detailed window there that you can still peek out of. Just like that. So now you can see what's going on behind the house as well as what's in front. So now that we got those details figured out, let's start furnishing. I'm going to throw up a bed. Somewhere nice and cozy, not in the fire, but right over here across from the fire so I can get all the benefits from it. And I'm going to throw up a cooking spit. I could throw it up right here in the center, but that's a bit of a reach to be honest, so I'm going to move it a little bit closer where it's still over the fire and I can still cook some things. Now that I got a cooking station, I want to start furnishing with some other things, and one of the other things that I'll consider is a workbench. But I don't know if I want to put it right here. I think it would do better over here. Maybe right there. Now that I got a workbench, I need some storage for the things that I'll be working on, so I'm going to throw up a few chests, another one right here, and I like to have one at the foot of the bed. Don't know why, I just like it. So say you want to stack these up now. We're going to take a half slab, and we're going to come up just like this, just barely above it. You can face it whichever way you want. I'm going to face them out, and snap them right into the wall like this, and then snap them to each other. And you have a nice little shelf. We're going to do the same right here. We're going to try and match that up to the center as possible, just like that, and snap another one. Grab me another chest, center that up, and my oh my, is it looking really nice. You got a mini storage system there. Now say I wanted to put another chest over here. I'm going to put one a little cattywampus, just to give it a little bit more character. And I'm going to throw up the same shelving system. You could do diagonal, but I found that did not work, so I'm just going to go flush with the wall. I'm going to add another piece there, but I'm not liking the direction that it's facing, so I'm going to fix that real quick. And then I'm going to extend this out as if it's a table right in front of the bigger window. Well, now that we got our shelving down, maybe we have some extra deer hides and we want to kind of gussy the floor up. And so plain. So we're going to throw down a couple of deer hides right there, and then another one right in front of the workbench. It's looking awfully cozy, and you could get a little bit more complex with your furnishings, but for early game items, this pretty much sums it up. So now that we got the inside furnished, there's a couple more things that I would like to do to the outside. It's looking kind of plain to me, so we're going to add some embellishment to kind of make this house pop. We're going to start with some eaves. We're going to continue the supports down as if it's an A-frame, and that will add a bit more character to the facade of the house. And we're going to do it to both sides. So another embellishment that you can add is the 1 meter beams, just to kind of continue the beams that we already have in support of the house. You'll see that they add a little bit of depth here, but because they're not covered by any roofs or anything above them, they're going to deteriorate if the weather gets stormy. So keep that in mind. To solve that, we're going to add some awnings. In this case, it was just a couple of steep roofs as though it was a continuation. We're going to add some poles here just for support, and we're going to add some 1/2 meter beams that stick up just for a little bit more character. We're going to throw up some beams and then start trimming this in just so it isn't bare like that. A little on the thin side in my opinion. Throw up across and voila, look at that. You have a nice little shelter to get away from the weather in if you're hanging out in the front of your house. I almost forgot a beam, so I am going to stick one right there. You could add more 1/2 meter beams sticking out here, but I don't want to add them there. I think I'm going to add them at the sides of the house, just like this. Kinda adds, again, a little bit more character, and I'm gonna do that to both sides of the house where they're not gonna be covered up, such as right here. I liked having the eaves in front of the window, so we're going to do that over the entryways as well. Now with the center, you could just snap here, or you could get a little fancy and raise that up a little bit so there's a little gap, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim these in, make it look nice. Voila! Maybe I'll throw up some supports. Fix the ground where needed, and then continue to frame in and add a little bit more embellishment. Alright, we have a very nice eave set up here. It has some depth, it looks great. There's a little bit of a floaty there, but that's alright. Let's throw up some torches so that when it gets dark, we can find our home that much easier. Now that we've put up our house and furnished it, maybe we want to throw up a fence to help keep out them ne'er-do-wells. Now we can go with the smaller fence or the larger fence. I like to go with the smaller fence because it only takes 1 wood. It is the cheaper option, especially when you're trying to throw something up quick early game. We're going to place these down in an alternating fashion, which will help with that rustic feel. So out here, there's not much to be in danger from, so I'm not going to worry about fencing that area in. You can if you'd like, but I'm going to close up this area. And voila, all done. Now, looking at the shed, I could give it just a minor overhaul. I'm going to do that real quick here. And there you have it, an improved little shed. Now, you could expand upon this and make it even that much more complex, but I feel like this is a great starting point. It's nicely furnished and it looks amazing. I'd stay in it for several bosses at least. There's plenty of room for expansion for crops and whatnot, and oh, my fire's out. Sad day. I hope you've gained some inspiration from how I've put this build together in a relatively short amount of time, as well as how I decorate. I sure hope to see you on the next build. Until next time.